Hey, what is going on? You are watching and listening to Tags Live, Talk About Gay Sex, the live edition. This is episode 468. I am your host, Stevie, alongside my special guest co-host, Teddy Alexis. How the hell you doing, Teddy?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for filling in for Kodi. Sidebar note, Kodi is in Sin City. I'm talking about Las Vegas for a graduation. He's also with Joe. They're also having some fun. And so we gave him the night off. But I really appreciate you filling in. And I love when you do. But I don't know that you and I have really done this in a while, other than you saving my ass several months ago.
That was like 2 years ago, by the way, not months.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's a year to the day you brought it to my attention that we were at the Cyber Socket Awards where we were nominated for Best Sex Podcast. In the awards were in West Hollywood, and you joined me. I'm just going to put the picture up for those watching us live, and if of course you watch us on YouTube. There we were on the red carpet. Oh my gosh. How much fun was that night?
He said our anniversary today, baby.
It's our anniversary. I know.
There was nothing wrong with that night. It was a lot of porn stars, a lot of freebies, good drinks, heavy pour,
Oh,
good
yeah.
weather. It was great.
So much fun. It was a slew of porn stars to be had, and I was living for it, and so much fun. So happy anniversary on that. And yeah, exactly. So thank you for that. Oh my gosh. Well, so much to talk about on this episode. We are in front of a live virtual audience. Hello, hello, hello. Feel free to comment in the comment section and we'll get to your questions. We have to start off with a legend in and of itself, Tina Turner. How could we not? Tina Turner, of course, passed away earlier today when we recorded this. And it's just, talk about a survivor, a legendary rock and roll queen artist of all time. I know for me personally, Tina Turner, I grew up in the 80s. I always talk about Madonna, but Tina Turner was right there in line, talking about Private Dancer, when she kind of got into her solo career, and so legendary. And then if we were to talk about the film, the legendary film that we all know and love that made an impact, but you and I separately in New York saw the musical, the Tina Turner musical, which really came home. It's so emotional. I just love that musical so much. What did Tina Turner mean to you?
Oh, I love Tina. I always loved Tina, and even back the Icon Tina times too. Those all of those recordings were really fun,
Proud
and
Mary.
I never got to see her live, but I got to see her in the musical. Right, so it's the way they did it. It's basically like a concert experience. So it starts with that iconic look of her in the '80s, kind of like starting I think it was like the Madison Square concert. And
Right.
the energy that when you see her that way and the musical starts is just so unparalleled. I don't know how was your audience, but the day I went, it was just like I screamed like for 3 hours. It was just the energy was so incredible. Yeah, so it's a huge loss for the world, really.
It's a huge loss for the world, and I've been watching tributes after tribute on TV all day today. And she was a Buddhist, and Herbie Hancock was talking about her recently on a news program that I was watching, and talking about the lotus flower. And I have a lotus on my arm,
Oh,
and how she
hello, bicep.
yeah. The Buddhism that she really wanted to relate to her audience, and how she had come full circle from a lifetime of really hardships and abuse, and how she had so many different periods of her life that she transitioned and transformed herself to become the legend that she was, and how she was an example of being a survivor. I mean, that whole song in the LGBTQ world, I will survive, I feel is her storyline. She was a true survivor in every way, shape, and form. And all I can say is rest in power, Tina Turner. Your story lives on. And I was just talking to my sister, and the musical that you and I saw is on tour right now. It's coming to San Francisco in August.
Oh.
So you can see it there at the Golden Gate Theater, but that just means that it's on tour in America right now. And I would check your listings. If there's never a time to honor a legend in and of itself, is to see this musical, and you'll get an even deeper glimpse into her world. You can also read her memoir, I, Tina, that everyone's talking about, but try and see that musical if it's coming to your neck of the woods, because I know you and I loved it and had such an impact. I was in tears and triumphant, and wow, that's all we can say.
Well, if it doesn't go through your city, you can also check on HBO the documentary that they did, and she participated in it, so it added to the legitimacy of that project. It's a good one to watch too.
Thank you for mentioning that, because I haven't watched that, and I saw they were mentioning that, and a little clip I saw of that. In 2013, she met this really young guy that was her partner. That's only 10 years ago, or 10 years ago, that she met this beautiful man, and it's never too, and she said, I met my soulmate. So we're always talking about finding loves and giving relationship advice. It is never too late to find your soulmate and that one person. Tina did it in 2013, and so I'm dedicating my weekend to watching that.
This is your year, Steve. This is your year.
Okay, yes, absolutely. More biceps. Oh my gosh. Well, we've got to get into hot topics, and I love it when a story drops when we have Tags Live, and the story that has been making every outlet today is about Target. You know Target, where we all shop and love. Well, Target removed their Pride items. So every year, at least this year, they came out with Pride paraphernalia, about 2,000 items actually, and they removed some of them after threats to employees' safety. And I saw a lot of stories on this essentially, but I'm just going to tell my side of the story. What I heard earlier today is essentially they had a whole Pride collection by one designer, and it was this one designer that was targeted, who people were targeting him because they looked up his past, and apparently somewhere in his artwork he had Satan references, but like maybe it was a devil, who knows. None of that was brought into the artwork for the Pride collection for this year's Target campaign for Pride. Essentially what happened is people in 3 southern cities here in America, they have been targeting them and threatening the employees, tearing down some of the displays, so on and so forth. So much so that the CEO had to come on, make an official statement and say, we have taken down some of these questionable items, and we're going to tell you what they are in a second. Also, we're putting the display of the Pride merchandise to the back of the store, and we're also, as a result, to protect the employees who they felt have been threatened. And that might be a real thing. What I say is, what about security? What about police? And where the controversy is where is Target stepping up to the plate? We get it. In a day and age where Bud Light was recently targeted, where people were coming out for Bud Light supporting a transgender TikToker, and people like, I forget the artist, but there was so much backlash for Bud Light, and people were crushing it on the right. Kid Rock, thank you so much. And
who is she?
Right, tired, and exactly. And so I think where it comes down to is, why didn't Target step up to the plate and show their support? Because what I feel like they could have done was, no, we continue to support the LGBTQ plus community. And by the way, what was in question was certain items that support the trans community. So we're talking about bathing suits. Some of the bathing suits said tucked for you. So in other words, like you're tucking, as they say in Drag Race all the time. But I feel like in these 3 southern stores of Target, I don't really believe that it was this, they did all this research and they were targeting this artist, or they were really targeting the fact that it was trans merch. I think it could be anything LGBTQ plus related, that because of what's going on in the country right now, they're upset and they're targeting this merch right now because it's what's going on in the country. What are your thoughts?
Oh, a lot of thoughts. The thing about, well, I am wearing my Pride merch today, but all Navy one, because all Navy hasn't pulled their stuff. This is from 2021, just saying.
Yeah.
But, Target, I've bought their...
Wait, can I stop you really quick? Because someone's watching us right now, and Bryce is saying, you were right, Gloria Gaynor on I Will Survive. I'm saying that song should have had an homage to Tina Turner. So you're right, it's Gloria Gaynor. But so we're in front of a live virtual audience. I was never saying that Tina sang that song. I just meant that it's an homage to Tina. And I know it's Gloria Gaynor, but go on.
She knows. No, so I bought their Target stuff, and I here in LA it runs out really fast, and they keep bringing more. That's why they bring it, right? It's the purchasing power of the LGBT community. So when they're talking about pulling stuff that is already been ordered and paid by the store, they're the ones that are going to lose money. And we have to think about where we put in the money, because if there's always incidents and there's always bigotry, and if their first reaction is to pull things really fast, then we know that their support, quote unquote, right, it's not genuine. So we'll take our rainbow somewhere else then.
But we're also showing the fact that if you scream loud enough against a certain community, that guess what? You win, and you get your point made across, and you get merchandise put at the back of what I call back of the bus, is the analogy I like to use, or you get merchandise taken down if you scream loud enough. What I would like to have seen by Target is saying, no, we continue to support the LGBTQ plus community and Pride that's kicking off June 1st. And we are going to put it in the front of the store where cameras are shooting and where we have security or police representation there. And if we catch anybody taking this down, trashing it, you will be held accountable. Where was Target stepping up to the plate in this instant? If you're going to go to all this work to create a line like this, then continue to show your support. And I get it. Certain individuals in the store might be threatened, but put it where you can have, from Oakland, California, where I'm from, or New York here, when you go into a store, there are security guards right now. You can't even get, you and I were saying in our meeting, you can't even get your deodorant now at CVS without having to press a button because everything's behind a casing. And so that just means that put it front and center and really show your support and say you will be held accountable if you are trashing or vandalizing or doing anything towards an employee of our store. Don't put it in the back of the bus, at the back of the store, and say that we're taking down questioning materials in your merch that you had originally planned, that, oh, maybe we made a mistake type of thing. It's weak. And it only shows that they're winning on that side. And that if you scream loud enough, like a Karen just came to my head, that you will get those that scream loud enough from the right will get their way.
Yeah. We don't want to be in the back of the bus. Remember back in the day when the stores will say, if you break it, you pay it? Remember that?
Absolutely.
Then we need to be charging these people for the rainbow stuff that they're breaking and putting them on their credit card. Thank you. Don't come back.
Well, we are live, and Bryce also says Target is full of shit, and their actions are a sign of privilege. Our LGBTQ plus IA plus community cannot change ourselves, but Target thinks they can put us in the back like Rosa Parks. Thank you. Absolutely what we were saying there. Ellen, watching us live, also says, I agree with you, Steve. Businesses are getting targeted. Sorry about the pun. For being supportive of LGBTQIA. Look how nuts the Bud Light, right? Look how nuts the Bud Light thing got. Scary. And we have to double down and over support where we can. This does bring up an interesting, and then we'll move on, because you and I have both been a part of Pride parades throughout the years, and we've seen Chase Bank, and we've seen Citibank, and we've seen liquor companies show support on the day of Pride. And I've always wondered, really, it's easy to have a banner, a Pride float, but what have you done for me lately, to quote Janet Jackson? And I just think if you're going to be Target and you're going to, like Old Navy, like you're doing, you need to really get a hold of your meetings and your marketing team when you're doing this, and know the temperature of what's going on in the country right now. Target should have had meetings already, knowing that the climate right now is super divided. It started with Florida, it's trickled down to Tennessee, South Carolina, and on and on and on. So they are not unaware of what's going on currently in the country, and they should have had a backup plan to circumvent situations like this, so that they actually would come out shining and saying, here's where we have a security team in place. You will not do this. And if you are, you will be held accountable. We stand by our LGBTQ plus community, and you will not get away with this. Instead, I feel like they're caving in, and they didn't do a good enough job of planning. And
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
And I like Target. So let's see how they
let's fix it.
My favorite word is pivot, edit. So let's see how they pivot. So Alan, also watching us live, says, Teddy, nice to see you in the co-host seat. How does it feel?
Hey, Alan. Hey.
I love it. Well, we want to remind you that we are in the middle, or the beginnings of a Tags Pride promo giveaway sponsored by Adam's Toy Box. You can always go to adamstoybox.com through the end of June, which is the end of Pride here, and you can get 25% off all things. And I'm talking about lube, cock rings, all kinds of masturbators, dildos, 25% off the entirety of the site, adamstoybox.com. Use our promo code TAGS25 at checkout. So remember that. And in the meantime, go to our website, TAGSPodcast.com, and click on the link of our Tags promo. Take our survey, and you'll be entered to win one of two prizes. And I'm talking about Adam's Toy Box and a whole slew of other Tags swag. So we really appreciate all of that. And I love all of you taking the survey. So keep it coming. Teddy, you want to read that comment that just came in while I pull up our next story?
Sure. Bryce says, Target is caving because they are afraid of cuts in funding. Their support was only increased because of revenue, in my opinion, but now it's not a financial boost. So Target is jumping ship.
Oof. Yeah.
Well, I still think that LGBT, the community, has a lot of purchasing power, and I see it in the stores that are here. Like when their Pride stuff, at least the previous years, when it got released, because some of the stuff that they have is like actually kind of cute. So you will just go there and get your stuff for the parade or for the month. Yeah, you get like a little bit of shirts and stuff, like nothing that consequential, nothing was political. So I'm really surprised about all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every year I wear my Converse Pride Converse, and they're really cool, and they always do a Pride sneaker every year, and yeah, they stay. I mean, I love the support. So moving on to a related story, you are in Los Angeles, Teddy, and I picked this story because it's related to the LA Dodgers. Not sure if you're a baseball fan, but the LA Dodgers had to apologize and re-invite the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence to their Pride Night. So the LA Dodgers has done another U-turn over its Pride Night fiasco. The organization originally announced that LA Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence would be among the award winners at its upcoming Pride Night in June. However, the Catholic League and, get this, Florida Senator Mark Rubio were among those to slam the Dodgers. They blasted the sisters as a diabolical, their words, group of drag nuns that mock Catholicism. You and I have more info on that separately that we'll talk about, Teddy. But the Dodgers they actually dropped the drag nonprofit. They responded to Senator Mark Rubio and this Catholic League. Well, this prompted a huge backlash, as you can only imagine. And if any of you know the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, I certainly do, from San Francisco. I'm talking about Sister Roma, but there's different outlets around the country. And they got so much backlash that the Dodgers had to issue an apology and said it had listened. Here's what they wrote. After much thoughtful feedback from our diverse communities, honest conversations within the LA Dodgers organization, and generous discussions with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, the LA Dodgers would like to offer our sincerest apologies to the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, members of the LGBTQ plus community, and their friends and family. And we have asked the sisters to take their place on the field at our 10th annual LGBTQ plus Pride Night on June 16th. We are pleased to share that they have agreed to receive the gratitude of our collective community for the life-saving work that they have done tirelessly for decades. And I'm glad that they came to their senses in all this. I know you and I know the sisters as giving. And it just goes to show in this instance, as opposed to the last instance, is that sometimes social media has a good outcome. In other words, we all spoke up and the Dodgers listened and said, why are we listening to a senator that doesn't even represent LA? He's from, I was going to say a word, he's from Florida. This is a good example of putting some pressure on the Dodgers. You're from LA. What were your thoughts on this? And what are your thoughts on, tell us a little bit about the sisters that you know.
Well, I know a lot about the sisters because the sisters been around since the 70s, and what they do is all charity, and they started doing AIDS help to the sick, which the Catholic Church, because what they did, Marco Rubio and this group, was calling that group anti-Catholic because, you know, the way they dress up as nuns to do service and in drag. So they're like really fun, but what they do, it's all super legit. And also they do something that is like really, really forward, which is inclusive drag, where, you know, when drag started, it was all about, you know, being like super in the binary. And they were the ones that were like, well, no, we can have drag queens with hairy legs. And all of that stuff was the sisters. So I was actually happy that the Dodgers came and sit down and did the due diligence, because they've have collaborated with them before. And instead of, you know, caving to this narrative that was completely false and completely unfounded, so I was happy that, you know, that they turned it around, because when they pulled them, and this is the thing, I've been to a bunch of Dodgers games and there's always like a theme. I went to a Hello Kitty one once. It's really what it is like it's an opportunity to sell more merch. And what they do for that theme is just really fast, because the games are already so long. So they will present people, hey, here's the captain, blah, blah, blah. He waves, they put it on the Jumbotron, and then we do the game. So when they're talking about pulling them, it's just so performatic and so ignorant. So Marco Rubio, he is the trashiest of the trashiest human beings, and I'm glad that it was obvious in this situation because what he did was unfounded, uninformed, and very ignorant.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because our co-host Lincoln just got on the Jumbotron at Madison Square Garden for his protein bakery, recognized as an LGBTQ plus business. And he was one of those that got flashed. But, you know, it's a big deal and it can ignite your business to even greater lanes, which is really cool. I think they heard the backlash. I think LA's a really open city for LGBTQ plus in general. I lived there, I know it, and they felt the heat, and I'm glad they did. I think sports in general are really trying in their way at times to call out bigotry and towards our community and other communities all the time, and they're getting it right sometimes, they're not getting it right. In this time they made a misstep. They listened to Catholicism, which has nothing to do with the sisters at all, and they listened to a senator that isn't even from the state. He's from Florida, so it's like there's that. And so I think
you don't even go here.
Yeah, right. Like, shut up. Like, you have nothing to like say. So they did the right thing, and we don't want to condemn people that pivot and make the right decision ultimately, and good for them. Bryce, watching us live, says, as they should apologize. The Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence are integral to the queer community. Oh my God, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I just saw, I'm from San Francisco, and I just reunited and took a picture with Sister Roma, who is so legendary, and I love her, and she's just amazing. And they really do this, the community here in New York also does a lot of good, and I love them. So yeah, I love that story. Very cool. You know, it had a happy ending.
Yeah, and so Bryce, they did apologize. They talked. The Dodgers talked to the sisters. They sat down and they, talked it out. So yeah.
Right. Okay. Moving on to a story that really is kind of left of field, but there was a man on. We're gonna make the story happen here. There was a man on vacation in Italy facing penis and scrotum amputation, y'all, following drug-fueled 24-hour marathon of a fuckfest. Their words. So a German tourist faces having his penis amputated after a 24-hour ecstasy and Viagra sex marathon with his wife on holiday left him with septic shock. The man was 50. He's in serious condition in the hospital of Grosseto, Italy, after having sex under the influence of drugs for an estimated 24 hours. And the two allegedly had the crazy sex session after taking MDMA at their apartment in Castel del Piano. This was a crazy story, and I even was struck when I saw this, because it comes from a site that often likes to put provocative, the real stories, y'all. So it's not like nothing's made up. And I think after talking with you in our meeting, we decided to include it, Teddy, for a couple of reasons. One of them that we both said, back me up on this, is that we've all been there. Not to this level. But we've all wanted to carry the party on a little longer.
A little too long.
And one of the things is, and I've been there myself too. And I just think that, one of the things you wanted to talk about was the increased uses of fentanyl that is occurring in drugs, party drugs, that is out there. And what did you want to say about that?
Well, first of all, this is kind of sad. So I hope he gets to keep his penis and his testicles, because that would be really sad. And they're in Italy, so mamma mia.
Right?
But these enhancing drugs, we have to be careful because, the thing is that then we numb our senses. So his body was probably telling him, "You're hurting me." And because of the drugs, he wasn't feeling it, right? And now that we are having this pandemic, basically, where our drugs are being laced with fentanyl, and like you just need a little bit of too much fentanyl, and you are dead. I actually had a friend of mine that passed last year because of laced cocaine. So we have to be careful, and there's a lot of resources for us. The LGBT center here is offering free testing for fentanyl. You just go ask for the strips, you test your stuff, and just be safe because everything in moderation. We all want a good long sex session, but when you're passing your bedtime 24 hours, you in danger, girl. You in danger, girl.
You in danger, girl. And fentanyl strips are real. I mean, all you have to do is look at the news right now, and drugs are laced with that. But there are strips that you can test your drugs if you are partaking in any of these things. We are not by all means recommending any of this, but you can get fentanyl strips, and they are often free at your local community centers. You can also get them on Amazon too, and it could save a life. And so that's why we kind of wanted to do this story, is that, hey, have fun, do your thing. But the state of the world right now says that many drugs are laced with fentanyl. Fentanyl, if you watch any news right now, is killing people left and right. There are strips that can help to find out if your drugs are laced with fentanyl. All you got to do, you can get them often for free. That's what we're saying. If you're playing, test your drugs. That's all we're saying, and so that you can not die is what I'm saying.
Right.
So
this reminds me. Do you remember when the Straits discovered poppers and they were just drinking it?
Oh my God!
Do you remember that?
Well, I remember when it got in my eye and it burned my eye to death. But yeah.
No, there was a story. This is maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, where like these straight couples were buying poppers, and because they didn't know how to use them, they were just drinking them and then pretty much killing themselves because it was so toxic to their bodies. So let's be informed of what we're doing to our bodies, you guys.
Absolutely. I love it. Okay, moving on. Many of you might go to film festivals. Many of you may have seen this current film that's out making the LGBTQ plus film festivals around the country, here in America, maybe across the pond, and so on and so forth. And essentially, it's an archive of gay adult films, which provides a titillating look back at the desires of queer liberation era. And what they're doing in this film is looking at the 60s, 70s, and 80s of sexual liberation. And the film, Ask Anybody, Buddy, Ask Anybody, is a nostalgic documentary from filmmaker Elizabeth Purchell. I love that it's from a woman, that takes a look back at queer life in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, like I said, specifically through the lens of erotic films from the era. Created at a companion to Purchell's podcast and Instagram account of the same name, so I kind of want to check this out, dedicated to archiving the history of, quote unquote, fringe queer cinema. Ask Anybody is a transfixing time capsule comprised entirely of clips from over 120 hardcore adult gay films. And Teddy, I don't know if you watched the trailer for it. It's currently going to be playing at Frameline Film Festival in San Francisco this June. And I'm assuming because it's made the rounds, it will have a release date. But oh my goodness, I love the idea of telling what sex was like and the underbelly of sex in the 60s, 70s, and 80s without a talking head, without a narrative behind it. I think that you can tell a story like our past guest last week, Joe, Kodi's boyfriend. He's telling his life story, son of a cop, in a zine format and in an untraditional way of telling a story. I would love to watch this film because I think it will give just a little inkling on what sex was like back in the day. Well, when you saw the trailer, and I'll post this on TAGSPodcast.com, episode 468, what were your thoughts, Teddy?
So first of all, I posted the Q&A that the director did on Outfest, and it's a man actually.
Oh, it
the
is. Okay,
director.
sorry, I'm corrected.
Yeah, maybe the producer is female. So the idea is that this aesthetic is just found footage, and all the found footage is from porn movies. And the interesting thing is that all of these porn movies were queer content creator like you and I that didn't have an outlet on how to do their movies. And what they did was, okay, we're going to trick you into seeing this porn, which is really my story, and then we're just gonna have sex scenes in it. So there's a bunch of things that are there that are really interesting because we always talk about 60s, 70s, and 80s, which is that the eras that this documentary looks at as times where we didn't have queer content, but we did, and it was in the porn industry. So I'm really excited to see this, and I hope they sell the documentary somewhere so we can watch it or buy it, because it looks so good.
And you can imagine that it was pre-HIV, the AIDS epidemic, so life and sex for the gay population is mostly featured in this was a whole different scenario. And I just think telling stories, people learn about culture differently. You can do it in a narrative way, you can do it in a documentary way, you can do it in a book, so on and so forth. Podcast now. I think this is going to be a very visual experience. I really want to see this movie, and it reminds me of, and I just want to share as we enter Pride Month, June 1st, that Wakefield Poole was a really big filmmaker back in the day, and he did a film called The Boys in the Sand that I highly recommend. This, you guys, this film, I've talked about it before on the show, but it was filmed in Fire Island. He used an 8mm camera at one point, and he had to transition to another camera. It's not porn, but it has porn elements. It's visual. It's just really, and he followed it up with a film called Bijou that is set in New York City in the early 70s, and it's dark and gritty and all the things that you love about New York City back in the day. And I often play these when I have a party here just in the background, and people are like, what is that on the screen? It's just a visual interpretation of sexuality, of city, of interaction, and it's a conversation starter. So I applaud this film that's coming out, but you can also check out other films. You were mentioning somebody that we had on the show recently that is going to be honored.
Yeah, so Frank Smith, which is friend of the pod, was selected for the new filmmakers for June, which is the LGBT, because they do their LGBT programming in June with Pride, right?
Yes.
So it's in June 17 here in downtown LA, and he's in the first block at 4 p.m. I'm gonna be there. I already have my tickets. So if y'all want to come out and check that out and support a bunch of LGBT filmmakers that now have the privilege to create for the mainstream, come and do that. And those are alternate things that you can do other than the parade.
And by the way, we'll say it at the end of the show, but on Instagram, how can people follow you? At Teddy Alexis?
Yep, at Teddy Alexis, that's me.
Okay, reach out to Teddy if you're going to go check this out, if you're in LA. Other co-host over there.
Or if you want to chat or something.
Absolutely.
My DMs are open.
Hey, absolutely. Put that out there. 100%. Doug says, watching us live right now, Doug says, I haven't seen the trailer yet, but it sounds like something I would be up to watching. Yeah. Oh my gosh. If I had it, I don't know if you have it there, if you could put it in
I will
the air for Doug. I'll post this on TAGSPodcast.com. Show notes, episode 468. Watch it. I think you'll really like it. And in the meantime, we've got to move on to a topic that we decided to include in our conversation today. And it has to do with the scientist that decided he's gay. Mikkel Street wrote, "Can I take PrEP?" Somebody was asking the question, "Can I take PrEP and fiber at the same time?" And we wanted to do this story because it's really relevant and it's nitty gritty with our sexuality here. Essentially, the story is asking, because somebody wrote in, can you take fiber, like a fiber supplement that many of us take? And I'm currently putting the one up that I take, Pure for Men, often. But I have another one that Dr. Goldstein has over there called Fiber. And can you take it, and will it have an effect on your PrEP? In other words, will it, because often fiber can have an effect on medication, correct?
Yeah, it
And so
absorbs the medication.
Right. So he wrote I'll post this whole story on TAGSPodcast.com because it's in quite great length, but the official recommendations seem to be consistent. You should space the ingestion of fiber and your PrEP out by at least 2 hours. Some even suggested taking one at night and the other in the morning, but a vocal group pushed back saying that most of it was an urban legend. And as they told the story, I'm just going to tell what I learned from this story because I find it better when I just tell what I learned and then post this on Tags Podcast. This guy decided to test this out and do his own research as an actual scientist. And what he found was in this one study that actually there was no difference if you take your fiber and your PrEP at night or at the same time. In this one study, he mentioned it was one study, and in his medical research opinion, he would probably space it out because he thinks there needs to be more research. But in his one study, he was very proud to promote that he didn't see any degradation of the medicine from the fiber pill being taken. I can also tell you, a friend of the show, Dr. Goldstein, proctologist, who we love, has said many times and has created his own pill version of fiber pill that he recommends taking the fiber pill at night before you go to bed, because essentially his theory is if you take it with a huge glass of water, the only caveat is for me, I get up and have to pee a lot, but if you take it at night, your body has a whole 8 hours or so of digesting all that. And then the idea being that when you get up, you release all of that and you're good to go, assuming then that you would take your Truvada earlier in the day. And I tend to take my vitamins and my Truvada after my first meal around 11 or so is my thing.
Really? You take it in the morning?
I do, yeah. Because why are you so surprised by that?
Because I feel like I can feel it if I take it in the morning. Like I get like a little bit high. Yeah.
See, I don't feel anything with it. It's just like a nothing. But you do feel
I do feel it. Mm-hmm.
And what do you feel? I'm just curious.
Like a little bit warm in my body.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, you have your own story on what are your thoughts on this and taking...
Yeah. Well, I do take fiber because it's good for my digestive health. And, I am in the bottom tendencies.
Yes.
Wink, wink. So...
Right. We said offline that we are two bottoms making it right.
Don't make a top.
Yeah. On
Two
this
buttons
show.
Don't make a top.
But we make a good show.
I did notice that all of the co-hosts are tops. That's what I told Steve.
It's so weird, but yeah. So I'm so glad you're on board.
Manifest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually like the study because I do take my pills in the evening. So I always have like that doubt of like, I try to space them out. And everybody listening, ask your doctor.
Yes.
But this is a good thing to know that this guy, and he didn't do it inside a body. He did it like in a petri dish. So this is the observations that he's reporting. So maybe at some point we'll discover that it doesn't have any effect. So that'll be cool, especially for us that are taking fiber at night, and then we can take it with our prep or whatever you're taking, and then go to bed, be blessed, and get pounded the next day.
Yeah, and we have a whole thing about pounding coming up a little bit later in this episode. Soon. But it's so funny because yeah, I mean, the whole conversation about this and when to take your pills, I think is, they're real questions that people have. And I think the one funny thing that this scientist said, and I will post this on TAGSPodcast.com, episode 468, is he said, I am a scientist. I did do this. The findings showed the results that it doesn't really degrade the medication, but I didn't want to continue to use my actual medicine and waste all of my Truvada because
That's right. He was using
sexually active. And I was like, oh, bitch, I'm with you. Don't use all your medication on a scientific experiment just to find
for the
out
love of science.
Thank you. Like, get a like a grant and from a university and make them provide it. Don't use your. But I love that he did do this, and I also love that he said, but if I were to recommend, I would say space it out, just because there's, even though my research showed this, I'm going to do this. And I kind of love him for all of that.
We do have a question in the chat.
Go ahead, read it.
So a sex question, which I love. It says, I have a poppers question. Ooh! Well, Steve is the poppers expert, so we'll see. Do you prefer the bottle or the spray? I wonder if my clumsy love hands do better with the spray in a towel. LOL. It's I'm only familiar with the bottle.
First of all, I didn't know there was a spray for poppers. Did you?
No, I've never seen a.
There's a spray for poppers. Oh wow!
We're old now.
I know. I'm intrigued.
We'll have to do a little more research on that one.
Yeah, I love that there's a spray. I've only old schooled it. He says you spray it into a towel and keep the towel on your nose. Oh, like you're suffocating somebody? I like that idea from a sex standpoint. So that's kind of hot.
We'll have Steve do the field research and we'll report back in a couple episodes.
Yes, absolutely. No, we're bringing this, we've got Popper lover Jeremy on the show next week, Tuesday, and I'm going to ask him about that. And we're going to do some research so that we can talk about this a little bit more intelligently. But thank you for bringing it to our attention, because I think I might like the spray, because, I love a good spritz. I spritz myself with cologne before I got on the show. I'm always spritzing something.
You're a Popper's cologne.
There is, Matthew Camp had a version of his fragrance that was supposed to smell like poppers, and I bought it. If you all know Matthew Camp, yeah, it's kind of down and dirty and has that. Yeah,
Alan, I have such a crush on Jeremy, by the way. I never met him.
Oh, so a lot of people love Jeremy. Yeah. As Alan says, ask Jeremy about the popper spray. Yeah. Well, we'll have to connect you with Jeremy, and yes, we love Jeremy so much. Well, it is time for us to give a little bit of advice, and should we just go with, I'm going to let you pick which one, Teddy, because we only have so much time to get to these.
Let's do the pounding one.
Okay, I love this one. So on a recent Reddit thread posted by Butterfly467, savings _Butterfly467. How do you train your hole to take a pounding? Love to bottom, they wrote. Love to get fucked aggressively. How do y'all train your holes to take a good dick or toy? Find that after a pounding, I need to rest. Want to be able to be a cum dump. Wow.
Oh. So, well, Stevie, how are you a cum dump?
Well, let's just break it down. How do you train your hole? I think I've trained over the years with different sizes of dildos, and parroting Dr. Goldstein is that you don't start from 10 inches. You start with toys that are smaller. And by the way, we're giving away toys that you can enter our contest. Go to TAGSPodcast.com, enter our Adam's Toy Box giveaway, and you will have those toys to train your hole. But you start small, and that's what he always says. I'm now in the game a really long time, and as long as I lube up and I know how to relax my hole, I can take, not like from 0 to 100, but if I know I want to get pounded that night, I will relax my hole a little bit. After I clean myself out, I will put in certain size dildos in there to relax it. I will put some silicone lube in there to relax it with my fingers. I'll do certain things to prepare, because essentially it could be trauma in some ways. So you want to prepare that region to take something larger that could be, and so you
How
just
about in
want to,
between rounds? How about in between rounds?
between rounds. What do you mean by that?
Well, because he's talking about getting pounded and then doing another round. Like,
I feel like if it's in the same night and you've been pounded enough, it's relaxed already. So you should be already ready to go.
oh,
I was assuming that his question was coming from, how do you take a good pound from you should be relaxing that region throughout the week, throughout earlier that night that you know
the
you're going to
whole
get
week.
pounded.
Wow.
You know, if depending on where you're at, like I'm at a
Mhm.
stage where I don't need to do that. But if you're new to the game, I think then you need to start playing with smaller toys at whenever you have a free moment. So it's a muscle, it needs to be trained. And so that would be what would be your?
Well, to me, as a multi-orgasmic person, I feel like in between, I'm very similar to you. I'm all about, getting ready and like prepping a lot. I'm all about the prep. So by the time I am being penetrated, I already put in a lot of work, right? So I already did like the cleaning. Obviously, that takes time, but also like, pre-lubing all the stuff, because sometimes like some of the tops are not like, they're not that patient. So you just have to, prep. But in between rounds, I feel like I need to relax. Like it's kind of like almost starting all over again in terms of relaxing. So because I get tired again. So
I think I have muscle memory. In other words,
you just stay open. You're just like,
well, if it's in that same night, I have muscle. My whole has muscle. It has muscle memory. In other words, it wasn't that long ago. Like, let's just say, if we're assuming he's talking of a fun night of being pounded several times,
he wants to be a condom.
Okay, then I'm assuming it's an hour, 30 minutes.
Right.
The hole has muscle memory within that period of time. Maybe it's still lubed up. So with muscle memory, I think you're kind of good to go. The one thing I will advise is carry your own particular lube that you like for yourself, because not every top is equipped or ready. And if for me, it's a silicone lube and Dr. Goldstein says the same thing too. Silicone is best for pounding and that sort of thing. It doesn't dry up like what lube does. And so have your own little mini one. And I carry mine when I'm going to a party like this, or I'm going to a certain club here in New York where I reside. If it's a jockstrap night, there's a little mini one that I put in my sock and I'm ready to go, because I'm not trusting. I don't want spit and all that. So I need lube. And so I'm like, no. Yeah. You need to put this on if you want to enter at your own risk. But here's the deal. And so bottoms, take control of your bottom health and know that you do have some say in this. You do have some say in how he enters. You do have some say in what lubrication is used. And by all means, use lubrication. And that would be my,
That's an excellent advice, because these stops be trifling and they will like wanna get the dollar store lube, and that's not gonna work. Remember, when you're being penetrated, you're inviting people into your place. So your place, you want the best. So get
Your
good
place, your
lube.
hole, whatever we want to
Mhm.
call
So
it.
get that good lube that helps you. Because the tops will try to, penetrate you with like a sample that they got at the Pride 10 years ago. Like, that's okay. No, thank you.
Exactly. And I think we have time for one more Reddit thread. And do you want to do the one about the dildo?
No, let's do the other one.
Okay, which one was that one? Oh,
Let's do the
sorry.
dildo one.
The need advice one?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna do one more. This person wrote, you buttered underscore faggot, but with a QUETTTES. I need advice. Precautions to take before hooking up. If daily PrEP or PEP and HPV vaccine and a monkeypox vaccine all I need to have safe sex hookups. So let me read that again because I don't think I read that right. Is daily PrEP, PEP, and HPV vaccine and a monkeypox vaccine all I need to have a safe sex hookups? What other precautions do you guys take? Do you all swallow during hookups? I've got so many questions, but I feel there's a major lack of sex education as far as gay men are concerned. But I also live a life mostly devoid of sex because I don't know how to talk to people. So I don't know. WTF? I'm willing to be. Oh, he wants help. Okay. So interesting question, because we live in an amazing age right now where we just did this whole story on Tuesday's podcast, episode 467, where we were talking about bareback and how bareback was like such a bad term at one point in time, and now everyone's barebacking. We've opened the door now. We have medication now. We also have medication too, where if you have a fun, crazy weekend or a Tuesday night, there are things that can eradicate things like chlamydia, STIs, and so on and so forth. And I don't know that there really is an answer to what this guy is saying. I think you need to decide. I think I make a decision all the time when I go out and I know there's a potential to have sex. I know I'm doing my part by taking PrEP. I know that that's not an age all be all. Like I know that if I'm having more sex during a period of time, then I'm going to need to go to the clinic more often or go to my doctor more often to get swabbed. So I think what we're learning about ourselves right now is all I'm going to say is you need to assess where you're at sexually currently and then determine what what you need to do for yourself. I mean, you said in our meeting that because of this show, you got your HPV vaccination. Yes, what can you tell us more about that, and what can you advise to this Redditor?
Well, what I can say to him is that no sex is completely safe sex. So those are.
But that's not fun.
I mean, I'm gonna play the other side. So there's PrEP and all that stuff, but ultimately you might want to consider condoms if you're that worried. What I'm the most worried about people hooking up is actually being safe in terms of their whole body, not STIs. Be careful where you're going and let people know where you're going if you're inviting people over. I actually did have a friend of mine that got murdered in a Grindr hookup. This was 4 years ago in Spain. So just be safe in that regard. I think that's what I'm more concerned about than the STIs, because as Steve said, pretty much most of the STIs at this moment are treatable or manageable. So we're in a very lucky position where, the monkeypox, we have the vaccine, we have vaccine for HPV and all that stuff, but you can vaccinate a dead body. So
I think that's really great advice, and I think you're right. Your safety, and when you enter some of these hookups, I think that's really key. And there's only so much you can do. I mean, there's recent stories about Mpox coming back. and porn stars recently reporting in that said they have the 2 vaccination shots, stories in Chicago that are showing it coming back. I think you can only do what you can do, and you need to assess it at every point in time of how sexual you were being at a certain time. So let me give you an example. When I was on a recent cruise, they had a red light district. I participated in the red light district several nights in this 1 week, was getting pounded several times in this, getting my dick sucked several times in this. And when I came back, I will be honest with everybody, I told my doctor to swab my throat and my ass region. And I'm glad that I did do that, because the ass one did come back positive, not the urine, but the ass one came back for chlamydia. He then prescribed me.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, it was, but I knew what the state of my sexuality of that period of time. I'm just saying. So I think where it's coming down to right now is we're living in a great day of science of sexuality, and we can have as much fun as we want to, but you got to look at where you're at with your current sexuality and then actually make decisions for yourself, not your doctor. You have to actually think about, I had to tell my doctor, and I know there's gay doctors out there, but I still think ultimately it comes to the honesty of yourself and where you're at with it. And that's all I'm going to say on that, is that, you know, if you find yourself a little bit more sexually active like I did, then you're going to want to take a little bit more tests so that you don't keep giving these STIs back into the community, and no one's blaming you for any of this. And that's what really where it's going to come down to. We all have to take responsibility of where we're at in our current state. We live in an amazing time where we can have amazing sex, but let's all look at ourselves individually.
Amen.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love this, and so much fun. Thanks, virtual studio audience. You can follow my special guest co-host, Teddy Alexis, on Instagram at Teddy Alexis. But where else can they follow you?
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. All of it is at Teddy Alexis. So if you want to keep following me, that's where I'm going to be.
I love it. You always deliver. Kodi will be back next week, of course. And you can follow me on Instagram at Iam_Steve V. Take our survey by all means, because it's really going to help us with sponsorships. It's going to help us to improve the show. And believe me, thank you so much for all of you who have been filling out that survey form. I hear you. I will continue to read it. We are going to implement things. I know there's certain things that we're not always getting right, but this is the chance for us to really improve, and we want to for you. So go to TAGSPodcast.com. You'll see it the minute you get to the website. Take that survey. You'll be entered to win an Adam's Toy Box giveaway, and we're giving away 2 of them, plus some other tag swag. So take that. And in the meantime, help me out, Teddy. Continue having hot gay sex. Yes, I love it. Oh, thanks, guys. So fun.